Hello, crochet enthusiasts. I'm Candace from Cans.art, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this comprehensive beginner's guide. In this video, we'll delve into the fundamental techniques and terminology to kickstart your crochet journey. Whether you're a complete novice or looking to brush up on the basics, this video covers essential topics from the simple yet crucial slip knot and magic ring to mastering foundational stitches like the chain, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. We'll also unravel the mystery between US and UK crochet terminology. So grab your hooks and yarn and let's embark on this crochet adventure together. A slip knot is the essential starting point for virtually every crochet project. It provides a secure foundation, allowing you to adjust tension and create the initial loop on a hook, laying the groundwork for a seamless and controlled beginning to your crochet masterpiece. So to start, you're going to prepare your yarn. You'll want about 4 to 6 inches on the tail. This just leaves a nice secure ending point. If you tie the knot too close to the tail, you might worry about it slipping off. So we'll leave a little bit of a tail. So this side we'll call the tail, and this is our working side. So you have your tail is the last piece of the yarn, and then your working side is the piece that's attached to the yarn. The next step is to form a loop. So just make like a lowercase n and then cross one over the other. So I've got my working yarn on top and my tail on bottom, if you look at the cross right here. Now you will tuck and pull. So I'll reach my fingers through the loop, holding that cross secure, and then grab the working tail, which is the piece that's underneath, and pull that through. And now you're just going to adjust the tightness. So you can see the knot starting to form. I can adjust my tightness. And now we've got a loop in the hook. It's a fairly large loop, so you will want to slip that down a little bit so that it is a smaller loop. And that creates our starting point. I'll unknot that. If you want to unknot that, you just pull right through and you don't have a knot on your yarn anymore. It slips right off, hence the name slip knot. So we'll try it again. I've got a loop, cross it over to make form a closed loop. Hold your finger closed on that cross. Stick your fingers inside the loop, reach underneath, tuck and pull, and grab the working yarn underneath. You've got a knot start to form, slip that through. This time we will pull that through a little bit tight. And then the last step is to grab your hook, put your hook through the yarn. Now you can tighten that so that it is fairly snug around your hook, and you are ready to begin. A magic ring is also known as the magic circle, and it's employed at the start of crochet projects where a closed center is crucial, such as when you're creating amigurumi or intricate mandalas. It allows for a tight and adjustable closure, providing a neat and seamless beginning to your crochet endeavors. If you are new to crochet, I encourage you to watch this video, learn what the magic ring is, and don't focus too hard on being able to work one yourself. Just keep it in the back of your mind for when you are ready to work in rounds. So to create a magic circle, you are going to use 2 fingers, your index finger and middle finger. You'll start with wrapping the yarn over your fingers. Use your thumb to hold it secure, and we'll leave a tail of about 4 inches. Wrap it over your fingers. Now come back through. We're going to create 2 parallel lines on the back of your hand, and then when you cross over, you're going to create a cross between on the top of your hand. So now I'll hold the working end of my string with my ring and pinky fingers there. Pick up your hook and insert your hook underneath the first loop, cross it over and grab your second loop, pull it through. So that's your working yarn on your hook now. Now, as I'm pulling through, I'm making a slight twist with the loop on my hook, and then I am going to grab that working yarn and pull it through to create a chain. So now if you look at the anatomy of what we just created, we've got a loop right here, and then there's a slight twist in the yarn here, and at the top you'll see a slip knot itself. So that leaves us in a good place to start working stitches right around the ring itself and work around the ring. We'll make, and then I'll make a couple just to showcase. And then after you make your stitches, however many stitches you need for the row, what you can do is pull the tail end of the string, and then that closes the circle tight so that you end up with a circle of stitches with no extra space in the center. And then of course, if you made a mistake or want to start over, it is a slip knot, so it pulls itself right out if you pull the yarn through. Chains are the foundation for many crochet projects, serving as the starting point for various stitches and patterns. To begin, you're going to create a slip knot in your yarn. That creates a nice loop to start. Insert your hook into that loop. And then we're going to create a chain by creating another loop. So you'll start by grabbing your working end, that's your end that is closest to the ball of yarn, wrap it over, and you're always going to work clockwise. So you wrap the yarn from right to left, or rather, yep, right, and then over to your left, and you have the loop on top. And then to do a chain, you're just going to hold tight onto that slip knot piece and pull your hook through. And that is it. So now we have one more loop on our hook. I'll do that again. You'll wrap clockwise, hold that yarn secure, your working yarn secure, and pull over one loop so that you have one loop remaining on your hook. Clockwise across your hook, pull through the loop. Clockwise, pull through the loop. Over, pull through. This clockwise motion that we're doing here, that's typically called a yarn over, and it's abbreviated YO. To start with the single crochet, you are going to create a chain as long as you need. I've got 11 chains on my hook right now. And then the first step is you'll skip the first chain on your hook and insert your hook into the second loop from the second loop closest to your hook. So I'll skip this first one and I insert my hook into here. That leaves me with 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, so I pull my working string over my hook, and I'm going to pull through that first loop. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull that through both loops. Now to continue working in that row, we'll do that same maneuver in every single chain until we reach the end. So I'll insert my hook into the next chain space. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through that first loop. I'm going to yarn over and then pull through both. We'll go through that slowly again. Insert your hook into the next chain space, yarn over, pull through. Now I've got 2 remaining. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both. Insert your hook into the next chain space, yarn over, pull through. That leaves 2, yarn over, and then pull that through both the remaining loops. Insert your hook into the next chain space, yarn over, pull through. We have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through both. Continue working that same pattern in each space until you get to the end. I like to, when you feel your hands getting comfortable holding the working yarn, you can insert your hook in and just automatically stick your yarn underneath that working space, making that yarn over kind of seamless and fit right as you're working the chain itself. And there's my last one. So yarn over, pull it through, and close, making a row of single crochet. crochets. To create your next row of single crochets, you're going to start with a chain. That'll get you the appropriate height, and then you're going to insert your hook into the first stitch of the previous row. So I'll insert my hook into this first space here. Looking at this from the top, you're going to see that there's two loops. There's the front loop and the back loop from the previous stitch. You'll yarn over, you'll pull through both of those, and we have two loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those. And from here, you're going to continue creating single crochets all the way across the row. So in every single stitch, we'll repeat that same pattern. So you'll insert your hook into the two stitches, into the one stitch with the two loops, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through both. And continue as many times as needed to complete your row. For the half double crochet, you are going to start with a chain of desired length. I've got a chain of 12 here. So to start, you'll take your working yarn and yarn over, creating two loops on the hook. You are going to skip the first two chains, and then you'll start working into the third chain from the hook. So this is one, this is two. I'm going to start by inserting my hook into this third one. You'll yarn over and pull through. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and then pull through all 3 loops. And that completes one half double crochet. So let's walk through that again. You'll yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. I'll go through one more time slow, yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. So if you've learned the single crochet already, you'll notice this is very similar to the single crochet, except you're starting off with a yarn over to begin. So that makes 1 extra loop on your hook before you insert your hook into the next chain. This is going to create a stitch that is slightly taller than the single crochet, but it's not going to be as tall as the double crochet. And coming into the last chain on the space, on the loop. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and we pull through all 3. And that creates a row of half double crochets. To create your next row of half double crochets, you are going to start by making 2 chains. So I'll chain once, chain twice. That gets me the appropriate height for the half double crochet. And now that chain 2 is going to count as your first stitch of the row. So that chain 2 will correspond with this first stitch right here. And you're basically going to act as though that is a stitch, which means your first actual stitch is going to go into the second stitch of the previous row. So I'll yarn over, insert my hook into that second stitch of the row, yarn over and pull through. 3 loops on the hook, so I'll yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And from there, you'll continue working your way across, making a half double crochet in every stitch until you get all the way to the end of the row. When you get to the end of the rows of half double crochets, you'll see a little bit of hook here. So our last stitch is this one right here. I'm gonna go ahead and make a half double crochet into that stitch. And now, if you look at the remaining space, we've got a chain 2 space here that we used as part of the foundation chain. That piece is actually going to count as a stitch. So those first 2 chains here, before we started our second row of half double crochets, that actually counts as a stitch itself. So you'll want to go ahead and make a half double crochet into that top chain of that chain 2 space. That way you'll have a consistent number of rows, number of stitches every time you create a row. It's very easy to miss that one and accidentally drop a row. So you'll want to be very careful when you work your way up to make sure that you're covering those last 2 stitches of the row. And then likewise, when we continue with row 3, you'll start with a chain of 2 here. And then you'll start, that'll count as a stitch. You'll start making your next half double crochet in this second stitch right here. We'll work our way across 1 half double crochet in every stitch. And then when I get to this last space right here, you'll see we have the same situation. We've got this loop here, which corresponds to the last actual stitch of that row. And then we have a chain 2 right here that we use to reach the correct height. So you will want to also make a stitch into that top chain of the chain 2 to make sure that your row ends up the same number of stitches every single time you are creating a new row. It's easy to miss those, so it's important to double check and count your work every few rows to make sure you are not dropping stitches. For the double crochet, you are going to start with a starting chain of your desired length. I've got 13 right here. I am going to yarn over. You're going to skip the first 3 chains, and in the 4th chain from your hook, you will insert your hook. So that's that one right there. You're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. So now I have 3 loops on my hook. I'll yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops. That closes half of the double crochet. Yarn over, pull through the last 2 remaining loops, and that completes the double crochet. So we'll walk through that again. You'll yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through the loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through the remaining 2. We'll work that slowly one more time. So we'll yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through the loop. You've got 3 loops on your chain, yarn over, pull through 2 of those loops, yarn over, and pull through the remaining 2. And that completes the 3rd double crochet. You'll continue working that until you get to the end of the row. If you have learned the half double crochet, you will notice that the double crochet is very similar to the half double crochet. You yarn over before inserting your hook. There's just one extra step, which is you want to pull through twice after you've looped through. So we start by pulling through 2 of the loops and then pull through the remaining 2. And that's the only difference between your double crochet and the half double crochet. So we are getting to the end. I'll walk through that one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook into the chain, yarn over, pull through. You've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. We've got 2 loops remaining, so you'll yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. Looking at your work, we now have a row of beautiful double crochets. For the next row of double crochets, you are going to chain 3. That will get you the right height for the double crochet. And that chain 3 is actually going to count as a stitch itself, meaning that chain 3 is going to line up with this very first stitch of the 2nd row. So we'll pretend that that chain 3 is the stitch that goes above here. And then we will start our first double crochet in the 2nd stitch of the row. So I'll yarn over, insert my hook into that 2nd stitch, yarn over, pull through. I've got 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 of them, yarn over, and pull through 2 more. And from there, you'll continue creating double crochets in every stitch until you've reached the other side. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2 more. You are going to work your way all the way to the end, and You should continue this so that you have the same number of stitches every single row. We had 10 in the previous row, so I should have 10 in this row as well. And now when you get to the last stitch, this extra space here that we used to create the height in the previous row, or that first row, actually counts as a stitch. So for your last stitch, you want to yarn over. And since that counts as a stitch, we're going to treat that as though it is a stitch itself rather than a chain 3. So you'll insert your hook into those loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, close the 2, yarn over, and complete the loop. And that completes the second row. Same thing, every single row, when we complete this third row up here, when we get to this last space here, remember that this chain 3 space is actually a stitch itself, so you'll want to create a stitch above this chain 3 as well. Okay, so you ended your row, you started your chain for the next row up, and you've gotten that complete. The next question to ask is, where do you insert your hook for the very first stitch of the row? And the answer is, it all depends. Read the pattern instructions, and the pattern instructions will clarify where you should insert your hook. Sometimes the chain space that you started with is going to count as a stitch, and sometimes it is not going to count as a stitch. So if the chain counts as a stitch, you're going to want to skip the very first stitch, and then you'll start your first actual stitch into the second chain of the row. If the starting chain does not count as a stitch, then that's kind of an extra space that will be off to the side, and you will start your first actual stitch in the very first stitch of the row. And then there are some patterns too that are going to skip some stitches, and so you'll skip the first stitch or two and enter your first stitch into the third or above stitch and work as you go. But a general rule of thumb for me is, if you're working single crochets, the chain does not count as a stitch and you'll stitch into the very first row. If you're working half or double crochets, then the chain spaces do count as a stitch and you would start into the second stitch of the row. Every time you start a new row in crochet, you want to start with at least one chain, possibly more, depending on what stitch you are working with, in order to reach to the next height. So basically, you'll work a row and then you'll chain one or more stitches. That'll get you to the top of the stitch that you are going to create for the new row. And then you'll stitch into the row below. So a general rule, it's not true for every single pattern out there, but for the most part, you're going to see that a single crochet is going to line up with exactly one chain. So anytime you start a new row of single crochets, you're going to create a chain of 1, and then you'll start with your single crochet. Anytime you create a half double crochet, you are going to create a chain of 2, and then you'll make your first half double crochet. And anytime you want to make a double crochet, you'll start with a chain of 3 and then you'll create your double crochet. A good thing to notice is that you could easily change these up. Now, if you want to test it out, create a chain of 2 and make a double crochet. You might say, hey, Candace, I see I have enough room to fit a double crochet with only 2 chains. Why don't I just do that instead? Your work will look perfectly fine. It's going to look beautiful. The reason I recommend a chain of 3 rather than 2 is that it gives a full length of height so that your first stitch doesn't look a little bit smushed. It just gives them a little bit of extra space and makes sure that there is enough space for the remainder of the row. One important note whenever you're working a crochet pattern is to double check the terminology for the pattern. There are 2 different terminologies in crochet. The US and UK have adopted different terminologies themselves. They are different names, but you are going to work the same stitches whenever you follow your pattern. So it's just something to keep in mind and pay attention to. The chain is always going to be the same name in the US or UK. Where it starts to change names is the single crochet. So your single crochet in US terms is going to be called a double crochet in UK terms. Your half double crochet in US terms is called the half treble in UK terms, and your double crochet is called the treble stitch if you are working in UK terms. So don't let this stop you from working a pattern. If you see something that's in UK terminology, I believe you can figure it out. You'll just want to make a note of the pattern, possibly even changing the terminology before you start working. That concludes our lesson. To summarize, we discussed initiating your work with a slip knot and introduced the magic circle, which is a handy technique to be aware of. We delved into essential stitches, including the single crochet, the half double crochet, and the double crochet. Don't forget to count your stitches every row to ensure accuracy. Lastly, we explored the distinctions between US and UK crochet terminology. I appreciate your company in today's crochet journey. Find more tutorials and join a creative crochet community on cans.art. May your yarn lead you to more crochet adventures until we meet again.